Thank you.
He's gone. He didn't.
Okay, in approximately 1 minute, we will begin.
Oh, that's okay.
Excuse me, you don't want to begin it?
No, I was We're having a book club.
Yeah, we can have a look at it.
Okay.
Okay, did
Mitch,
update.
talk.
He's got 2 minutes. Yeah, or is it? 1 minute. He was 2 minutes early the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I want to welcome everyone here to the meeting tonight of the City Commission, and let me get my little cheat sheet out before I get started. That way I can do this right. Anyway, we'd like to begin our meeting tonight by acknowledging that the land on which we are gathered is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. Thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same. As we go through our discussion tonight with each other and with our audience, we appreciate them being here. May we do so with respect, dignity, patience, and charity. With that, I'm going to ask three young ladies that are sitting in the back from Central High School to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance of the flag, please. All right. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stanley,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Shamrock,
Here.
Commissioner Colbert,
Here.
Commissioner Werner,
Here.
Mayor Lewis.
Here.
I show that Wilson and Treadwell are not here.
Okay. All right. Before we get started, I do want to make one introduction. Would Mackenzie please stand up? I'd like to introduce my oldest grandchild, Mackenzie,
So,
who's a junior here tonight observing us. Poor thing, she's had to live with me for a long time, so she knows more about how to run local government than I do. So, but she's here because her teacher told her to be
Are
here.
you making her sit through the whole meeting?
No. So
Good.
anyway, thank you, Mackenzie, for being here tonight. Anyway, announcements from the city manager.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Commissioners. It's been brought to my attention in regard to the study session next week. We have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission as well as the reports outs of the master plan, the draft mobility plan, the public comment for the City Commission and Planning Commission. And this being a joint study session as well as other items, it's been recommended that we move the tentative discussion on our recommendations for the construction and renovations, and this is the collaboration I've been working on with the Green Team, to the next regular study session that we have. But that's April 10th, I believe.
Well, could we have it moved to the next meeting
We could.
in March so that we're still getting
It's a study discussion, but yes.
Yeah.
That'll be, our next study session will be the last Monday in March.
We always cancel it because of spring break. Because so many people.
So
take their
that's why I was
families.
saying it's a regular meeting, which with it, she's suggesting. We could
Right.
do that, though.
It's up to you guys.
I just, that was my suggestion because this is going to be something that we're probably going to discuss and take apart. So with it being a joint session, rather than having a huge whole joint session and then sending them on their way and then still digging into that, probably won't be the most productive conversation. I don't mind if anybody else doesn't, that we add it to the agenda for the next regular meeting, so we're not delaying it too much.
You meet on the 20th?
Yes,
Okay,
so if that works for people.
okay. Great.
Thank you.
All right. Announcements? Marty, was that all?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Announcements from the deputy city clerk?
Well, I was just going to mention earlier, I think you received an email that we were asking to pull item number 4 off. Okay, thank you.
I have noted that it has been removed.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Was that announcements from the city clerk?
Thank you. Meetings scheduled for this week are the Planning Commission will meet on Tuesday, March 7th at 7 PM in the training room. The Mobility Action Plan Leadership Team will meet this Wednesday, March 8th at 4 PM in the committee room. The City Commission Fire EMS Primary Transport Ad Hoc Committee will meet this Thursday, March 9th at 9 AM in the committee room. Boards and commissions with expiring terms and vacancies are Local Officer Compensation Commission, Election Commission, Human Rights Commission, just to name a few. Community updates, a second round of engagement related to conceptual designs for the TART Improvement and Extension Project will take place on March 15th and 16th. Both virtual and in-person options will be available. More information may be found on the project's website under projects. The Mobility Action Plan Project will host a public engagement session on March 15th at, I'm going to
3 to
mess
5.
up this name, but the Elvavon?
Alluvian. The
Alluvian,
Alluvian.
thank you. I was just going to mess it up. From 3 to 7 p.m. Lastly, this past weekend, the city worked with the Vasa Ski Club to host the high school state championships for Nordic skiing at Hickory Hills, and we would like to extend a big congratulations to the Vasa Nordic Raptors on winning the state title. And I would like to remind commissioners, staff, and members of the public to speak into the microphone so those watching at home and the recording of this meeting is easily heard. Thank you.
Okay. With that, would you please lead us through the consent calendar, please?
The consent calendar. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for individual consideration by the commission, and such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. 1, consideration of approving the minutes of the February 6th, 2023, February 13th, 2023, February 21st, 2023, and February 27th, 2023 meetings of the City Commission. Approval recommended. 2, consideration of authorizing an agreement to accept funds and provide for an in-kind city match to accept a $323,428 grant from the United States Department of Agriculture for a small-scale food composting pilot program. Approval recommended. 3, consideration of authorizing an amendment to the contract with the Michigan Department of Transportation in connection with the Safe Routes to School project, which clarifies the city's cost share is $92,576.66 rather than $97,500. Approval recommended. 4 is removed from the agenda. Number 5, consideration of authorizing a confirming purchase order for unleaded gasoline for city operational use. Approval recommended.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any member of the commission who would like to have an item removed from the consent calendar? Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would like to have an item removed from the consent calendar? Seeing none, I will be happy to
I'll
entertain
make
a
the
motion.
motion that we accept the consent calendar as presented by Ms. Lutz. Lutz. I'm sorry, I just said your last name wrong. Sorry. I was just talking to Andrew Lutz earlier today. Sorry.
Deputy,
Deputy Clerk Lutz,
thank you.
since it's different from what was presented in the packet.
We have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Flip a coin, which one do you want to pick? Okay. I'll pick Stanley this time, and you'll get the next one.
No problem.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Under old business, we like to go into closed session for the possible discussion of real property. I will make it aware, as you would know today, there is a possibility we may come out and have some action to be taken. And I said possibility. Doesn't mean there will be or won't be, but I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. So I'll be glad to entertain a motion to do so.
I'll make the motion that the city commission enter into closed session immediately following the public comment portion of the agenda to discuss the possible purchase of real property as allowed under MCL 15.268 subsection D.
Support.
Given a motion is support. Is there anyone from the public that'd like to, I don't know,
I think.
Talk about nothing.
anyone make a comment on that? Anyone from the commission? All those in favor say aye.
Roll call.
Oh, roll call.
Tim,
Almost got it.
Almost got it. Roll call, please.
because it's illegal.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Shamro,
Yes.
Commissioner Colbert,
Yes.
Commissioner Werner,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Okay, under new business, we have a presentation by our city assessor, Polly Carnes, of the 2022 annual report. Mr. Colburn, is there an introduction you'd like to make?
Yes, our city assessor, Polly Carnes, will review not only what took place this last year, but also give you a little bit of insight as to some of what we're expecting this upcoming year. And it's been a very active real estate market, as you know, and it continues to do so. Polly?
Thank you. Holly Karen, City Assessor. I wasn't going to spend too much time talking about what we do because it kind of glazes everybody's eyes over. But I would say the biggest news that we have this year is since the implementation of Proposal A, we are at a 5% inflation rate multiplier for the taxable value. That's the highest it's ever been. 2009, it was 4.4, and then we had a slight reduction in 2010. So we're at 5% this year, but the actual inflation rate, as determined by the state of Michigan, was 7.9. So we have been answering quite a few questions regarding that. People trying to figure out how. You know, it's just the nature of what happens. But our SEVs that you can see in the report, we've had a considerable increase, especially I kind of put a snapshot in there from 2003 to 2020 to where we are currently, 2013, sorry. We've had an increase of over about 1,000 parcels. So on average, that's an extra 250 parcels per person in my staff to manage each year. We've had a considerable amount of paperwork that has increased over the last few years with the changes in the legislature and the state laws. Staff works hard. I am proud to say, too, that come this April and May, we will be going on 10 years together. So we haven't had any changeover in this department. So it's been good. We're a well-oiled machine, and everybody works well together and works well with the public. We do have our board review next week in this room. I was kind of hoping we were going to make it to the big room, but not yet. Other than that, I will put out the final values once we have our March board review, and that's confirmed by the county. So I will send that to all of you in one of our next packets, so you have that information as well. Are there any questions? Come down and come see us sometime. We'll show you what we do. We do have a good time doing it. Thank you.
I tell you that most times when I go down and ask her for numbers, she can show me how she got them. Sometimes my head swims, but most of the time I understand her. So thank you very much for that assistance.
No turnover in 10 years is
That's
something.
amazing.
It
That
is.
really something.
Okay, thank you. With that, we have next on our item is a consideration of adopting a resolution, a 16-year pilot for Antica Place 2, which is a limited divided housing association limited partnership. I will turn this over to you, Marty, for an introduction.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Commissioners. We have with us this evening Mr. Craig Patterson. We've built a working relationship with Mr. Patterson and WODA over this last decade and have had a number of successes now after several, I think 4 initial letdowns. We had filed some concerns with the MISTA in regard to how they rank, and I think they've taken note in regard to trying to equalize a little bit with the rural communities versus the larger urban communities. That being said, our history is that we have 2 ongoing projects under construction right now with WODA. This third project is a little bit unique in the sense of a little bit of a positive change up in regard to the customers, clients that they are planning on trying to serve. And so at this point, I'll introduce Mr. Craig Patterson in regard to giving you an overview of the few of the tweaks from the previous types of projects that we've put forward and answer any questions that you may have.
Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, it's good to be back. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about Annika 2. I was looking at your goals and objectives for 22, 23, housing, and homelessness. What's unique about Annika 2, different than anything we've ever introduced before, is that we will be setting aside 19 out of the 52 units permanently for chronically homeless and homeless. I am going to attempt to get this PowerPoint unless you trust me to just wing it. First of all, I think many of you have seen that Ruth Park is coming along very nicely. Thank you again for all your support. Pretty soon, we're going to light up that sign up at the top that illumines in the evenings. It's 81% complete. We believe that we will be able to start occupancy at the end of May, early June. Hanukkah Place is only 10% complete. It's over on Garfield. And primarily the challenge there was we got a little bit of a late start. You remember that cold day that we were there together at the grand opening, or at the ribbon cutting, anticipating a grand opening in 14 months, and we're hoping to still hit that target. We're only 10%. We're laying some of the underground plumbing right now, but we're trying to stay on course with that one. Still going ahead. So let me just talk about Hanukkah Place 2 is a $16.1 million investment, a little bit more than Hanukkah 1, even though this has 52 units compared to 53. We're putting in counseling rooms, medical office for private medical screening, and also our typical community space. We are also targeting, this is general occupancy plus permanent supportive housing. So like in the past, seniors, singles, and families will be able to be there. And then 19 of the 52 units will be set aside, like I mentioned. Let's see if I can jump ahead. Okay, we're good.
Scroll.
Okay, that's the picture of the building. There we are on December 2nd on that cold day. I've already talked about chronically homeless and single seniors. It's a 4-story building, just like Hanukkah 1. This building is pretty much just to the east of the property line of Hanukkah 1. But it will be facing Hastings Street, and it will belly right up to Hastings Street, and one of the wings will be on the northern edge, as you'll see here in a future slide. 28 ones, 24 twos. There's the elevations, which have been reviewed by Dave and Sean. There's the layout of the building. As you see it, there are ample parking spots per code. The current building that's there, we're getting a demo quote on it, but it'll come down. The antenna will come down. We'll move some utilities. And so we think, and we've already done environmentals on the site. In trouble. There it is. Okay. As I mentioned, 19 of these units that are set aside will receive vouchers. We've applied for these vouchers. We're waiting to get them approved. We have 2 voucher sources. Traverse City Housing may provide some of the vouchers, and the fallback position would be to go to Mich to get the vouchers. Goodwill of Northern Michigan will be our lead agency to make sure that the wait list is correct, that the tenants are screened, that we find those who are in the greatest need when it comes to chronic homelessness. There will probably be a mix of between roughly 50-50 chronically homeless and also other homeless. I talked to Dan Barron this morning, and he reminded me that within your city, according to their records, there are roughly 280 homeless, of which 60 of those are considered chronically homeless. So we have worked with Goodwill since 2012. Our project up on North Long Lake and Zimmerman Road is Brookside Commons. Goodwill has been our lead agency there since we signed the MOUs in 2012, and that has been a very successful project. And in terms of taking people off the street that need low rent, permanent set-aside housing, and also general occupancy. Sustainability. This will be a LEED Silver zero energy building. We are going to add an EV charging station there for future use of residents, or if there's another, or guests, and we are also investigating electric heat. Ever since the meeting that we had a couple weeks ago when we were, the workshop, and I think it was Commissioner Shamrow, I couldn't see anybody that night, but you mentioned, what are we doing about electrification? Commissioner Werner had also asked me that question. The last 2 weeks, we've been diving deeply. Our architect has started modeling. We've talked to Keen Solutions, their principal, to get their ideas. At the present time, we're still not certain in this cold weather with heat pumps and the way they have performed in the past, whether we can assure that we have continual heat to the satisfaction of our customers, our tenants, but we are not leaving any stones unturned. One of the things that came out of a meeting I had on Friday with our architect was the possibility of, is it possible to have backup to bring in the necessary heat through some sort of geosystem? And we're looking at that, and I'm not sure where that's going yet, but the modeling has started. Benefit of this unit was mentioned that earlier in my presentation of 42 units will be at an income level of 70 to 80% AMI. You can see what that means in terms of the caps for income. A single person can make up to $43,400 and live in a unit, and a family with two, as you can see, this is at 70%. They can earn $49,500, and you can see the caps at the when you get a family of four is between $62,000 and $71,000. Our rents will be lower than 70 or 80% AMI, and we can talk about that later if you would like more detail on that. The request is for a 6% pilot for 16 years, and you already know how important this is to win funding from MSHDA, but at the same time, more and more of our investors are requiring a pilot in order to underwrite the projects, to be certain that in a year like this, when we're all at municipal level glad to see a 5% lift, our investors really want to understand that over the course of the 16 years that the pilot will be at that amount, and if our rents go up, so will the pilot percent, or so will the pilot net income go up in a given year. With that, I will answer questions. Commissioner Shamrow.
Oh, okay.
You can go first, Commissioner Shamrow. I have quite a few, that's why, so.
Okay, go.
Hi.
Hi. So I want to really commend you in this project and Woda Cooper for setting aside those 19 units for the supportive and transitional housing. So I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, so that those 19 units will be permanently set aside, not just for the 16 years of the proposed pilot agreement?
That's a really good question.
Choice of words.
I hadn't thought that one through, but I do know the answer. We will be committing to a 45-year affordability, which means those 19 units, as I understand, will continue for the 45.
Thank you.
So I have a few questions. Then that's a great answer to hear, and that will be then in the contract, will it not? That the
It
final
will be in the
contract?
covenant that's
I was
recorded.
going to say, I see our attorney's shaking her head too. So, so a couple quick questions, and they're kind of all over the map. So bear with me here. The supportive housing, I'm familiar with how Northern Michigan Supportive Housing works, that they work with each individual tenant. Some people are visited every day, some people are visited a couple times a week. What kind of system do you put in place for your supportive housing? Is it similar?
Well, it's very similar, and we do make a commitment to MISTA that we will have X number of hours on-site casework, on-site supportive services. And that's being worked out right now with Goodwill. Now, Goodwill will be the lead agency, and together we will bring in service partners that will attend to the basic needs of the tenant base that we expect to be there.
So I guess to clarify that point more, though, so MISTA has a certain requirement, and I guess I'm asking a little bit more about Goodwill's policy. So will they go above and beyond if that's what a person needs? Let's say of the 19, everybody could get 1 day a week, and that would satisfy MISTA. Is that what Goodwill or your system will prescribe to, or will it do more as needed for different
Well,
tenants?
as a minimum, we'll meet what MISTA requires, but we will rely on Nora and her team
Okay.
and Dan's team to work with our community managers. And Nora may want to add something
I
here.
see Vigor's head nodding over there, so actually that's very good. Unless
So-
she wants to come up and ask, but that's really just what I wanted to make sure of, that there was going to be that kind of tailored care and not prescriptive. And I see a lot of head nodding, so I appreciate that. This is my first encounter with getting any kind of information about Goodwill's program, so I appreciate that. The second quick question, I think it was just a choice of words again, but there was a mention of having private medical care there. Most medical care, I guess, is private, so is this just would be there to help?
Private room.
Private room?
A private
Yeah.
room, that's what I mean.
So-
Someplace where they can go in seclusion and confidence and
Okay, great. And then I wanted to say, I just made notes as I went, so they're kind of in order of your presentation, but not necessarily maybe in the same veins. Electric heat, I just want to say thank you for continuing to explore that. I'm hoping that with the work with Keene, I know they're leaders on that will be something that you can accomplish with this in some way, shape, or form, so that's great to hear. And then the last question I had, since you're saying that you're probably not even going to hit the whole 80% with any of these units, what does the average income look like for like 70 to 80% of AMI in our area?
well, those numbers come right out of Grand Traverse County, what I had on the
Right.
slide.
I didn't see any on the slide. I
maybe
saw
I
the
can
70 to
back up.
80%. I didn't see income, which is what I was asking.
Behind Brent's head.
Oh, behind Lawrence head. Sorry. Sorry. No, it's okay. It kind of was at different heights, so sometimes I could read the whole slide and sometimes I couldn't.
You
Did
want
I
to go
already
up?
pass it?
No, down.
Too fast.
No, other way.
Maybe in the future, we could have presentations emailed to the clerk's office and they could be set up. I'll drive.
Yeah.
Right there.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Yep. I think that one was a little covered by mine. Okay.
So those are the income caps
Yes,
at the
okay.
70 and 80. Now, at the 30% range, we will have some 30%ers in there. Those are going to be down in the 18 to 25,000 range. We will have the rest of the units, if 42% is, what is that, 22 of the units will be at these higher incomes. 19 will be permanently supportive housing, so they'll be at the low end at the 30%. And then remaining 11 will be at 40%.
Okay.
So it stretches the full gamut, and it's income averaging that allows us to.
Thank you for answering my questions. Those were just a couple of clarifications I was looking for. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So I respect your company very much and the projects that you have done here. I'm wondering, however, I'm really happy that you're working with Keene, and many of the things you mentioned are things that we're hoping to achieve with these buildings that are receiving pilots. Is it possible for you to pursue that a little further before we vote for this, or is it important that this vote happen tonight? I mean, I'd love to know where that goes. And I'm wondering what kind of timeline you're on for that.
Well, our application must be submitted by April 3rd. And I've been told, and this is just all the consultants saying, that to go through this properly and to advise ownership what what kind of equipment and everything it's gonna take at least through the end of the month into next month.
Yeah.
So I know what the real, and frankly, thanks to both Commissioner Shamro and Commissioner Warner, I wasn't even thinking about electric. Really wasn't, because we have an internal policy at Woda Cooper based on, we're in 16 states, and anything north of 70, US 70, which is really Columbus, Indianapolis, we always put in gas heat, just because of the challenges with tenants and the wavering weather. Now, when you get up here at the 45th, a little bit lower than the 45th, with the winds and everything, we just have never looked, so it's going to take us a little longer.
So I was visiting someone today who has a heat pump, and he said that he uses it for spring heating and fall heating, but that it is not enough for the winter, and he was curious about how it would work on a 4-story building, so he has a backup.
That's part of it. One of the things is that my understanding, and I'm being educated, that at about 14 degrees, they start to really lose their efficiency, and Commissioner Werner probably knows this. But the good thing about the Inflation Reduction Act, there's been a lot of money that's been poured in, as many of you know, to have the OEMs put more money into new technologies, and so some of that's coming to market, mostly on the commercial side, as I understand. I got this from Keene, but we're hoping we can find some combination or some way to make this work. I did say to City Manager Coburn that I thought that before we went to 40% plan set, that we would know, and we would be able to have some intelligence enough to know what could happen if we convert.
So this is the first time I'm on this board for something like this, but I would hope that in the future, the green infrastructure is a 3 on these charts, and not the lowest number, so I hope that we continue to pursue.
We'll get that good policy discussion in 2
That'd be
weeks,
great,
too.
yeah.
I think that'll help. Tim doesn't, but I think he will.
So if somehow the motion tonight included building electrification, does that kill your project?
If there's any type of contingency on the pilot will not be approved by MISTA. So
how, okay, I guess then a question for the attorney, how do we require building electrification for this project?
You can't do it. Mr. Patterson's right. We've had things in our agreements before, and MISTA won't accept it. So I don't know the answer to that. We'd have to get with MISTA and see what they're willing to accept. But it's been a hard no on stuff like that.
Can I ask go ahead.
Well, I mean, we saw it in emails today, and I've tried to point this out in the past, and this isn't you, this is us as a community. A previous city commission, and we're not bound to it, but a previous city commission said we, as a community, would be carbon neutral by mid-century. If this gets built with natural gas heat, who's going to pay however much it is to retrofit the whole thing 15 years from now? I mean, it has to happen. Or we say, well, we don't really mean that. That's where I'm at with this. Like, either we mean it or we don't mean it, and either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it.
Can I ask a clarifying question to Commissioner Warner's? So like right now, because we don't have an adopted policy, it would be us requiring it as part of the pilot. If it's a policy of us as an institution, does MISTA still have an objection that's applied by us as an institution to every aspect of our institution, anything that has our funding or our land use? Is that the same as us today saying, well, we'll vote but for this pilot, but only if it has, only electrification? Is there I guess I'm asking, is there a nuanced difference between if there's a policy that applies to everything versus applying it to just one project via a motion?
I think the decision is, so if I'm understanding you correctly, if there's a policy that this board won't approve a pilot if it doesn't have that.
Or well, I guess that, let's say the policy is any publicly owned property that gets developed must be electrified, period. So we're applying it to ourselves, we're applying it to any developers, we're applying it to anybody. Then does MISTA look at that as that is the local policy and that is their rules of law?
I don't know how MISTA would look at that.
I'd be curious about
my
that.
I suspect that MISTA is interested mostly in what is in our pilot ordinance and what is in our pilot agreements that that come through that agency. If there is a blanket ordinance that says every building that's being built in the city of Traverse City has to have X, I don't know that MISTA would really care about that. But it seems if I'm understanding you correctly, it seems like a little bit like 6 of one and a half a dozen of the other. Like it wouldn't be approved anyway. You wouldn't get the pilot resolution.
Right, and I guess
take
it
to
probably
MISTA.
is legally 6 of 1, but I guess what I'm saying is it's not like we would then turn around and build a new fire department and not have that same policy applied to it, or fire station and not have that same policy applied to it. And so because it's being applied universally, that's where I was kind of curious if that's different to MISTA than us saying, we tonight will not approve this pilot motion unless it has X contingency that we are adding at this moment.
I think, yes, I think we're saying the same thing.
Okay.
I think, if MISTA has a resolution or a pilot agreement come through them that has something like that in it, they won't accept it.
Can I?
Oh, yes.
Sorry. I guess where I was coming from with it is we have a scoring matrix, and somewhere buried in here, I think, there's some cutoff value. It has to be at least some number.
29.
It's at the bottom.
I don't recall, sorry, but whatever it is. So to me, we're not doing it tonight, but essentially we could have it in there that you get a 0 unless your building is electrified. Like, we can come up with the math or whatever, and so then it just doesn't qualify. And we're like, well, your project didn't qualify because look at the points.
That's a policy decision that this board can make.
Okay, so that's where I was after, and that's my dream, I guess, is that we will have something like that, because it's not the fault of WODA, but I was part of this, I think, when it was put together, and it was put together with good intentions, but frankly, it's a failure, in my opinion, as was just pointed out. Maybe that wasn't the intent, but there's no basis to it. There's not. As far as green infrastructure, we see a number, but when I read through it, I don't see any green infrastructure. It could just as easily be a 0. Again, nothing against the project, but we don't have some range of, if you do this, you'll get this score. If you do this, you'll get that score. In the narrative for it, in calling out LEED Silver, it calls out an abundance of insulation. That's frankly disappointing. As far as word use, to put in something to say, yeah, this is going to be green, and because it's the whole picture. It's not just, Werner wants things to be, climate neutral, that sort of thing. The more we push on this, the better it helps the people that are living there. It's not just air quality. Over time, they will pay less in utilities. And if it moves forward with natural gas, and by 2040, 2042, in the community, and not just the community, but the state is moving away from natural gas prices just skyrocket.
Right.
And so the interim, until they do get retrofitted at some exorbitant cost, they'll be paying out the nose for utilities. So then we're talking about, but yeah, you get it. I don't need to go on to it. Thank you.
I would say to Commissioner Warner, I kind of recall when we did this, I think it was yourself and Commissioner Howe might have been still on the commission then. But we always said that we could go back and refine this, and I think you've made a good point that we probably should go back and refine this.
Definitely.
And add some more, now that we have technology more in hand, I think that would be good to do.
Well, I think we understand now what it is we want. When I look through some of the scoring numbers, it doesn't matter. Mostly I want the people that live there to have a great home, right? To have a great home and a home that lasts. So yeah, the materials of construction that last, great. A good walk score, they can walk to Traverse Heights School, they can walk to the grocery store just around the bend, catch the beta bus, have some facilities that makes it feel like home, have a few trees out, just what people want, so they feel like, oh, I'm home, and I'm not just in this place surrounded by semi-industrial things and not sure whether this is a comfortable place to live. So I think we understand better now.
That's definitely time.
Of course, I was around when we did the first matrix with two other commissioners. And I know there has been, discussion, okay, did we cover everything or not? But, it wasn't meant to be a policy that's in place, but as time moves, we can always recommend a change. The only question I have is that if we put too much in here or whatever, could we be cutting off our nose to spite our face? Because we all keep saying we want affordable housing, but if in this case, Amishta will not accept that, that means they can't move forward. We don't get the affordable housing. It's not like we're going to get lots of it. Now, that's the yin and yang to all this for me. Now, it's one thing about a fire station. It's another thing about a senior center, things like that. But that's what I'm, so it's one goal trying to match another goal. And how do you get them both to work together? If I had the brilliant answer, we wouldn't have to have the discussion because I don't have it. So anyway, we'll take it from there as we move forward. So,
Can I?
yeah, of course you want to. You want to.
One more
Come on,
question.
Grumpy. He's grumpy. I'm Mr. Happy. See, this is what we're doing.
My gift.
So, I echo what's been said earlier as far as thank you for all
Yes,
your
thank
commitment to our city, perseverance, all those years when things kept getting rejected. And so I want to be able to approve this tonight. And I know WODA is a somewhat large entity and you're one individual, and so you can't promise us anything, but can you provide some not even assurance, some good intent, at least on your personal part, to the extent that that WODA will allow you to, that you will pursue building electrification as strongly as possible and work with partners like Traverse City Light and Power. They're about to launch a climate action plan, and they're eager for customers to work with, eager to collaborate, eager to figure out how to set the rates to make it financially viable, eager to provide incentives to make sure it's financially viable, and to get feedback from it. And yes, that means it's kind of beta testing and whatever, and it will take extra time on your part and others to go to meetings and hash things out, but it's entirely doable. But it does take effort, and that's partly why we don't have something yet. Like it's easy to just look at it and say, well, that's really hard. We're not sure. Like to the point that was made, there's lots of anecdotes about people that have things installed, like, well, it doesn't quite work and all the time. But typically that's older technology. Like the technology's there, especially if you can investigate ground source heat pumps. It's absolutely there. So I guess circling all the way back, if you can say something somewhat positive to reassure me, I would greatly appreciate it.
Well, there's a couple things I could say. First of all, I'm fascinated by this opportunity to discover what could be out there, truly. Because we really haven't thought about it this far north. In our southern states, they do it, but I don't operate in the southern states. I've been encouraged by how hard our architect, Hooker DeYoung, has been working to try now, totally a doubting Thomas, based on multiple sites in Michigan, some farther north, but still open and willing to go through the models. They were the ones that suggested maybe ground source. I don't know yet how that will be. I don't have enough due diligence, don't have enough to go to an owner, but the owner did say to me, I'm open. David Cooper said, I'm open. He said, but you got to prove it to me, Craig, because we've had problems when we've done this in, Kentucky and northern Kentucky and things like that with our tenants complaining. We have a consultant group, Soul Consulting. I've talked to them. about it, and there's a special seminar I'm attending next week regarding this. And he's going to use the Traverse City example in a seminar he's giving to all of WODA construction, all of WODA development. And so you guys are, this city is getting noticed because of your vision.
Okay, thank
The
you.
second thing I can say, this is a 16-year pilot. When we need to recapitalize, believe me, somebody younger than me will be in the room, and maybe this one or the other one, and we'll be asking for a pilot. In the recapitalization exercise, we normally have to replace, HVAC, et cetera. We have reserves to take care of that in the 15, 16 years. But, it would be a retrofit, but you abandon some of that and you take care of what needs to be done to put in electric.
So another side of the question is, if for some reason you come through and you go through everything and says, we just can't make it yet, but we're going to install everything in such a way that we can make the retrofit easier, is that also a consideration?
Well, that's a great question, Mayor, and we're already
'Cause I know
talking,
we've talked about that too, a little bit.
yeah, we're already talking about zero energy ready in terms of adding another layer to this in case eventually let's say we need solar as backup, et cetera. We'll be able to, in this building, put in the components necessary. But to your point, we should look at that more in terms of how we retrofit. Is there anything we can do now?
Because if we're this close, in 16 years, this could be a common thing
Sure.
if the technology is being pushed.
Hope so.
I know that was another, when Tim and I have had these discussions, so, well, if we can't do that, so it doesn't cost us much to retrofit to get it in, at least the system's there, that wouldn't take as much effort, maybe, but that's a decision you all have to
And Brandy Ekron was just sharing with us some already cost affordable ways that they're retrofitting like kitchens and things with just cutting off gas and putting new tops on and things like that are easier. So to Tim's point, though, the heating
It's the heating part.
might be set up a little differently, but there's already some more effective, cost-effective ways to do it today.
So,
I do agree with Tim, though, did not miss the opportunity to confer with TCLP and Brandy Ekron.
It's something that's been recommended, and I brought it up with the consultant out of Keene, and he said he was going to make sure I got to the right people, but he wanted to talk to TC Power a little more before I called. So that was late last week.
It's good to
But the one thing I can say, which really got me going on this after it was brought up through emails, was I looked at the utility allowances at TC Power compared to consumers, and their rates are lower when it comes to electric, and the rates are lower. Their electric UA is lower than gas. Doesn't necessarily translate into kilowatts, but it still is encouraging.
And could you elucidate for those that haven't sit in on a lot of utility rate discussions, how that actually translates into affordability of the project?
Well, the first thing it does is utility rates are given to us. We get them from Traverse City Housing Commission, and I think their feeder program is there's also HUD utility rates, but those utility allowances, UAs, actually go into the formula for how much rent can be charged and collected net rent. So there's a gross rent less the utility allowance, which translates into a net rent which we collect. So theoretically, if the UAs are lower, that means the cost to the tenant is lower. So theoretically, because they're not paying as much for energy.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission?
Yeah, totally off topic. I'm Little Miss Fun. Who's Annika? Where did Annika come from?
Annika is the name of a young lady who is the granddaughter of David Cooper, who was on the island. At some festivity, she went in labor, and they had to chopper her to Munson. So it was because of Munson that little girl was prematurely born and cared for.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Motion.
Huh? Wait, let me just get audience. Or you
Usually
want-
we made a motion first before we had
Yeah, we
audience.
Why don't you just go ahead?
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that the resolution granting tax exemption for the property at 1020 Hastings Street as requested by the Annika Place 2 Limited Dividend Housing Association Limited Partnership, oh, that's a lot of words, at a rate of 6% and a term of 16 years be adopted.
I hear support. Linda? Thank you. Okay, is there anyone from the audience who would like to make a comment or? Okay,
I'm going to read the rules. We ask that you state your name and your address, indicate if you are a city resident, non-city resident, and/or city business owner. We have a 3-minute time allotment per speaker. When your time has elapsed, the timer will beep. And finally, we request that all language be respectful to all parties.
Hi, everybody. My name's Ashley Halliday-Schmann, and I am the director of the Northwest Michigan Coalition to End Homelessness and a resident of Garfield Township. Here tonight to support Annika 2 and the idea that housing is what will end homelessness, and housing like this. So Annika 2 is a real-life example that housing ends homelessness. This type of housing that they're doing here for the 19 permanent supportive housing units is what will serve our most vulnerable population, the chronically homeless. And I also wanted to add in there the services offered, so no matter who it is doing them, if it's Northwest Michigan Supportive Housing, if it's Goodwill, if another agency comes into town and wants to do permanent supportive housing, the coalition upholds standards of care. So it doesn't matter where you're being served, the services look the same. And Goodwill has a long history of providing those services with the coalition. Right now, there's about 60 people experiencing chronic homelessness in our community. So this property has the potential to really take down that number. And you'll hear from us in the coming weeks, hopefully, about our 5-year plan to end chronic homelessness as a coalition. And this property will help us make that happen. So, thank you.
okay.
My name's Ryan Hannon, Community Engagement Officer for Goodwill Northern Michigan, 2279 South Airport Road West. My office is in the Common Grounds building on 8th Street here. I spend a lot of time with people experiencing homelessness in the city. I kind of just want to say what she said. Ashley, very good, very well put. Permanent supportive housing is how we end chronic homelessness. And the people, when I get up here and talk to you guys about the people that are homeless and have been homeless a long time and die in the streets, usually are chronically homeless. So if we could dramatically reduce that number through a place like this, that would be really awesome. And when Craig talked about working together with Brookside Commons, that's over there by West, and we have a number of units there, 22 actually, I think, altogether, that we put in people who are experiencing chronic homelessness. And we haven't had a whole lot of issues over there. It's been going on for a number of years, and a number of people that I didn't think would make it live there and are successful and do well. There's only been a couple that didn't make it there, but through the permanent supportive housing model we use as a coalition, they were housed somewhere else. And it's never 100%, right? But 2 out of 22 out of that, it's more than 22 because of the turnover, but so many years working there, it's a wonderful thing. Thank you for considering this project. It really aligns with what we've been talking about for years and years and years. So thanks. I support.
Anyone else from the public? Okay. We have a motion on the table and a second. You ready?
And one last. It's positive. It's not grumpy. It's positive.
Didn't tell him he could talk after everybody else did.
It's positive. Just for not just this commission, but the city as a whole.
Yes.
Looking at this scoring matrix, and when we each as individuals have opportunities to go down Hastings and think about what we can do as far as public infrastructure to help make this a better home for people. Because I think there will be opportunities. Thanks.
Also, I would also, well, wait, let's get this vote over with. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously tonight. I would also recommend that we create an ad hoc committee that may want to look, or sometime in the near future, maybe not immediately if we got other items, to go through this matrix, because even with our own 16, even if we incorporate our own pilot program, we're going to want to make sure the matrix is what we want also. So,
I'm glad they're saying that, but I would say let's look at it after the 20th meeting to see what's
well,
recommended.
that's why I
and
didn't say
integrate.
right now. Let's figure it out sometime in April or May. So, because we also want to look at this in conjunction with our own pilot program. So, okay. With that, Mr. Patterson, thank you for being here with us tonight. It's appreciated. Okay, I'm going to continue on so everyone leave quietly. Okay.
Ooh, give him the Mr. Grumpy book.
Yeah.
You're going to have to trade.
Tim's been much more smiley tonight. Look at it.
Well, I'm just trying to do this
all
nicely
smiles.
so I can continue on. All right, next we have authorizing a contract with Michigan Department of Transportation to provide for the city's upgrade to the water main and sanitary sewer in conjunction with the MDOT's planned reconstruction of US 3137. Marty, I'll turn this over to you, please.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Commissioners. The city staff has been working with the Michigan Department of Transportation in regard to the reworking of the Parkway, US 31 and 37, and in regard to improvements. A component or components of that are city-oriented and owned, and that is specifically this particular item that comes for you tonight is in regard to the sanitary and water line improvements. We also had just identified that the bids came in Friday, and Mr. Art Krieger, who is the Municipal Utilities Director, is here this evening.
They know where to get their signature later.
Good evening, Art Krieger, Director of Utilities with the city. As Marty mentioned, this is before you tonight as a contract to pay for the utilities that are planned to go in the new highway project that's slated to start spring of 2024. We're putting in a new 12-inch water line all the way from Garfield to about Hope Street. And there's a segment of 16-inch water main over toward Hall Street area. We're also eliminating one smaller sanitary sewer on the east end of that project. That's basically between Garfield and Hope Street. And combining, basically removing one small sewer on the north side of the right-of-way and then running the laterals to the larger main that's on the south side. So we're condensing sewer lines, less piping in the ground that, needs to be maintained over a long period of time. So the investment was estimated by MDOT because they had an engineer's estimate up till last Friday. So the numbers you see in the packet were based on the engineer's estimate. Elmer's was the low bid. They came in overall, it was 14% higher than the estimate. However, the water and the sewer utilities are higher than that. I don't have the exact percentage above 14%, but that was a big part of the cost overrun, not really an overrun, the elevated cost over the estimate. Estimating in the last couple, 3 years has been almost a nightmare for engineers. The products out there, the shortage of chain supply issues, material costs have been going bonkers. It's not an easy task. So to come in on a $25.9 million bid over the estimate of 22.7. In this bidding world isn't all that bad in my mind. It is about $3 million, but basically there were two bidders, so Elmer's was low by about, I believe it was close to $10 million. So we're focusing on the contract just being a unit price contract. So the numbers will be what they are after the project is completed. So we'll just be billed for water and sewer items as they are needed, as they are built, and all those unit prices have been established. So the contract amount will be adjusted accordingly to what actually gets built.
Would it be better off waiting until we have third numbers to put in here, or just go with these numbers? Because we know they're not correct.
Well, the contract reads that it will be adjusted, that this is just an estimated amount and it will be adjusted per the bid.
You still got to enter a
prices.
contract.
Correct.
Okay.
That's part of the contract language, so.
And would any other elements of the contract get adjusted besides just the specific price points? Like if we see delays in or cost overruns in one type of material, but something else could be substituted, could that get changed?
It's got to be built per the specifications, and that's very specific on what our standards are for materials. So it's not likely you can change out materials during the project.
Thanks for the description, Art. Something that stuck out to me in your description of it, though, were the leads with the removal of the smaller sanitary line on the north side of the street and then the leads running to the south side of the street.
Yeah.
Has there been discussion about the future? So I'm thinking some of it, like there's been some redevelopment in that stretch. I'm thinking from like the Blue Goat to Garfield especially, because that falls into that area roughly.
Right.
Some of that's been redeveloped. Some could be redeveloped anytime. I think there's even an empty parcel there next to the gas station. So could we at least notify property owners that, like, can we put a lead in that's either not connected to something, somehow have it ready? Because it seems like nobody's going to be happy if this is 2024. In 2025, they're out there with the trucks digging up the street because they got to go 8 feet down or whatever to put in a new lead because somebody decided to put a 2-story apartment building on the north side.
Yeah, we always do the best we can with a construction project and looking ahead, but we don't have the crystal ball. It's not going to be perfect, but we have put in future leads within the right-of-way to get it to the edge so you don't have to tear up the street if something goes there. Like
But it might be, but is it sized for, some of those are very modest, single-family
Correct.
homes, and
Yes.
how it's zoned, it could end up, I don't know what it could end up, how it's zoned, but maybe a 3-story, 6-unit apartment or something like that.
It could.
Could we, as a city, at least contact the property owners in case they're thinking about it or considering it, to say, hey, now's a good time to
Sure.
come
If
talk
you're-
to Dave Weston and figure things out?
If you're talking about the open lot immediately,
Not just that lot, the whole stretch, because some of those other units.
I was just going to say, we did talk to the one owner of the.
Great, but just
Yeah.
like to me, it just makes some sense.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not your job, it's nobody's job, but
Right.
if we somehow could contact those property owners.
Say if there's somebody that owns what is now a single-family house, but is going to purchase the property next to it and put a small apartment building there that requires a larger lead.
Just to be looking to the future.
Yeah, while you got it torn up, it's a good time to put it in. Just like we put in underground piping to run underground wiring. You know, we do that in places, so it'd be the same thing.
Right.
Putting the pipe in, ready to be used in the future, so.
Yeah.
You can take a
So,
look at
so
it.
our minimum size sanitary lead in the right-of-way is a 6-inch anyway, which is bigger than a 4. It would handle a relatively large building, but if you were doing a 4-story condo units, you know, you might
Well,
need an 8, but
This, you got time to figure that out and talk with the property owners on the north side to get them over
Right.
to the south side, so.
Thank you.
Or south side to the north, whichever way.
North side, yeah. Did you have a question? So mine, I appreciate the presentation and, look forward to seeing this work get done while everything's dug up. I guess I would just kind of use this opportunity to take a minute and say, I know you're focused on utilities, but this is the kind of thing where we had the conversation last week about nobody knowing that we have arborists now. And something like this, well, I know, but it's a good point. I wasn't naming names, you outed yourself. But this might, I guess I would say something like this is a good opportunity. I was reading one of the emails and, we're putting this vortex and like this exciting, interesting stuff. And we hear a lot of people talking about how bad, and publicly, how bad our water system is and, the beaches having to be closed down. So I'd hope when we have things like this come along again, we take an opportunity and even have like 1 or 2 slides showing what it is or where it's going to be, just so people can hear and see more clearly that we're doing some of these improvements and, what we know you've been working on, but I guess kind of tout yourself a little bit more so people know that these are coming, because what people are going to see is a street dug up and not know what you're doing underneath it. And so I really hope that you all, as we do some more things with this, or if there's more opportunities, just kind of take it that little step further and really help the public see what we're doing. It's not just a presentation on a Monday night in March.
And that's Colleen and the Bay Brief.
Yes.
I mean, we've got the mechanism now to do that.
Yes, although I would like to see it too in the meetings on these Monday nights in March.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just
Yes.
one thing. I want to apologize to Commissioner Werner because I got the question late this afternoon. I just want to make sure I'm communicating correctly with you that the stormwater is being paid for by MDOT, and that's why it's not in this agreement.
Correct.
Okay.
They will provide, MDOT is going to provide and already has provided a stormwater maintenance and operation contract.
So that will come at a later time.
Yes.
Sorry, since you broached the topic, I question, and sorry, it was a very late email. Say 5 years from now, the next, or 3 from now, city commissions decide, oh, you know what, we really like this new nature-based technology for handling stormwater, and so we want to have it installed. Will the proposed or current agreement with MDOT allow for that? Or do we have to essentially open negotiations? Like, can we proceed and say, hey, if you want to tag along, you got to pay your part? Like, what would happen?
I think it's going to depend on where it's located. If it's in the right-of-way,
No, it would be, so say it's, along Rose Street toward the outlet, something like that.
on city right-of-way.
City right-of-way, yeah, just city right-of-way. We're not doing it in their right-of-way, so it's our infrastructure again.
Yeah. Yes.
But are we obligated to pay their portion? Say it could be sized at 100 to treat our stormwater, but because we're already treating theirs with these vortexes, but we've decided we want something better, now we have to double the size and we have to pay for it to treat theirs.
I think that is an excellent question when we bring back the maintenance agreement. And that's something that the city engineer already brought up to me, that we need to talk about with that agreement.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll make a motion. Can I
Please
make a
do.
motion? I move that the mayor and city clerk execute a contract with Michigan Department of Transportation, MDOT, for the US 31 M37 Water and Sewer Utilities Replacement Project. Contract number 22-5479, control section NH2813, job number 131655, Con, with such contract subject to approval as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney, with the funding provided by the city as included with the Director, Municipal Utilities, February 24th, 2003, communication. That is a catchy one.
I will second that with 2023.
Oh, what did I say?
2003, it's okay.
Okay. We have a motion and we have a second. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to comment on this? Okay, seeing none? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, Art, as soon as you can get some better numbers, just out of information, it'd be nice just to have it back, so at least we have it for ourselves, so, once you get that, thank you. Consideration of establishing an ad hoc interview committee to make a recommendation regarding one expiring 5-year term on the Traverse City Light and Power Board. And through the luck of the draw, we have Commissioner Warner, Commissioner Stanley, and Commissioner Treadwell to be appointed, with Commissioner Warner to serve as chair and Commissioner Treadwell to serve as secretary,
Well,
whether you wanted to or not.
Beach secretary?
There you go. So anyway, who would like to make that motion?
I said so moved.
Oh, I'll read it. So
No, I said so moved. It's the ad hoc with those. You've outlined it. It works.
I'm so happy that the woman doesn't automatically get to be secretary anymore. That makes me really happy.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, here's the motion. This, hopefully one of you will make it. It says that an ad hoc interview committee be established to make recommendations regarding one appointment to the Traverse City Light and Power Board for the seat expiring April 3rd, 2028, currently held by Alicia
Davila.
Davil. Okay. And that Commissioner Warner, Commissioner Stanley, and Commissioner Treadwell be appointed to such committee with Commissioner Warner as chair and Commissioner Treadwell as secretary. Now, who wants to make that motion?
Again, I'll make that motion.
So, I knew you would. Who'd like to second it? Thank you, Ms. Stanley. Anyone from the public like to interject here? Good. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Okay, you have reports and announcements through here that you can review at your leisure. We're now to a point under reserved public comment. We have none. Do we have any general public comment? Okay. And last but not least, because we'll be coming back, I'll leave the public comment for the mayor and commissioners at the very last, if that's okay, because I know we'll be coming back in. Okay, with that, we're ready to go into closed session. So, and again, there's a possibility we may be coming out and taking action. The students may come up and have their papers signed, and you all can go home. Or go have a milkshake, whichever goes first.
I was really happy
Are you
that was
signing
your
the sheets?
granddaughter and that you weren't just giving big hugs to every high school girl.
Mayor?
Okay.
You just want that one?
I forgot I had a question for you.
It's no warmer. Where did Richard go?
He's right
He
here.
was right there.
Yes.
There he is. Oh, there. Okay. We're back.
Hold on.
Signature.
Okay. Okay, first of all, in order to take any type of action on tonight's meeting, because this was not on the agenda, this is for the public's information, we have to have 6 votes in order to amend the agenda and add an item. So you can see, we don't have 6 people here. So we will be having a special meeting next Monday night, right before our study session, for the purpose of setting a public hearing for March the 20th in order to hold a public hearing and consider a resolution to apply for a grant from the Department of Natural Resources. The purpose of the grant is to acquire approximately 528 acres of property adjoining Brown Bridge Quiet Area. Up here on the board, you see the 2 areas, light green and blue, of the properties that we are potentially looking at. And so with that, that's all we can share tonight. There's a lot more information that will be sent out to the media and others probably in about 10 minutes as soon as Colleen hears this, and you'll have the rest of the information. Any further questions that you may have should go through the city manager, Marty Colburn. So there we have it. So expect this on our agenda next week at a special meeting. Thank you for your indulgence. The next is public comment from the mayor or city commissioners. Anybody got one? Yes, ma'am.
So I just want to say congratulations to the Holiday Race Team at Mount Holiday for winning the Wellborn Cup at Boyne Mountain yesterday. So congratulations, skiers.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yes, and our clerk's office already announced this, but I would like to commend the city parks and rec staff and the staff of Hickory Hills for hosting a phenomenal state championship for Nordic skiing, and to congratulate our own Vasa Raptors program from Traverse City for winning the state championship.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anybody else? With that, this meeting is hereby adjourned. See you all see each other later.
I'm going to leave this one, but I have about 10 at home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did too.
Kind of,
Okay, so I'm gonna go call.
So we at least gave her the same message.
to suspend the rules.
To suspend the rules to add an item to the agenda. This was not under to take action. Huh? It is 6 votes to add something to
I don't,
the
or
agenda.
maybe,
This is what-
maybe.